43 years of my life turned to ash in a single afternoon. The farm where I raised my daughter, the orchard I planted with my husband, the house that held every Christmas morning, all of it, gone. That night, I knocked on my daughter's door, asking for shelter. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Her husband said he didn't want a homeless woman dirtying his Persian rug. And standing there, freezing on that porch, I realized something. Sometimes fire doesn't destroy. It reveals who your family really is. My name is Catherine Williams. I'm 75 years old. And this is the story of how I lost everything and found out that the boy I saved 30 years ago had been waiting his whole life to save me back. It started on a Tuesday in late July, the kind of day that tricks you into thinking everything's fine. The sky was that perfect northern blue we get up here in Yukon, so clear you could see the mountains 50 miles away. I was in my kitchen making jam from the last of the strawberries when I smelled it. Smoke, not the good kind, from a neighbor's barbecue. This was different. Sharp, wrong, like the earth itself was burning. I stepped outside and saw it. A wall of orange eating through the forest to the west, moving fast, too fast. The radio had been talking about the drought for weeks, about how the forest was dry as kindling. But you never think it'll come for you. You never think your little corner of the world is next. I'd lived on that farm for 43 years. Through winter storms that buried the house in snow. Through spring floods that turned the fields into lakes. Through summers so hot the paint peeled off the barn. But I'd never seen fire like this. I called 911. The woman on the line said they knew about the fire, that crews were on the way, but I could hear it in her voice. The hesitation. The unspoken truth that there were too many fires and not enough crews. She told me to evacuate immediately. Take only what I absolutely needed. Get out now, ma'am, she said, her voice tight with something between urgency and apology. You need to leave right now. This fire is moving at 60 kilometers an hour. You have maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes to pack up 43 years. I stood in my living room and looked around. 43 years. Where do you even start? I grabbed my late husband's watch from the mantle. The silver one he wore every day until the day he died. Our wedding photo. The one where we're both so young we look like children playing dress up. My grandmother's quilt, hand-stitched in 1942. Every square a piece of someone's old dress or work shirt. And then I stopped, because what's the point? You can't pack a life into a bag. You can't fit memories into a suitcase. You can't carry love. Through the kitchen window, I could see the smoke getting closer, thicker. The light outside had turned orange, apocalyptic. I could hear it now too. Not the crackle you hear in a fireplace. This was a roar, like a freight train, like the end of the world. I got into my old Ford pickup, the one my husband Robert bought in 1997, when our daughter Kristen graduated high school. It still ran good, even after all these years. Robert always said if you take care of something, it'll take care of you. I wondered if he'd say the same thing about daughters. I drove down the gravel road that led away from the farm, my hands shaking on the wheel. Behind me, through the rearview mirror, I watched the smoke tower into the sky, like a pillar of judgment, like something biblical. I drove for 20 minutes before I pulled over on the side of the highway and looked back. The whole horizon was glowing, red and orange and angry. I knew, right then, that everything was gone. The house where Robert and I brought Kristen home from the hospital. The barn where we'd kept horses until arthritis made it too hard for me to ride. The orchard where my husband and I had planted every single tree by hand. 73 apple trees over the course of 3 springs. The porch swing where I'd rocked my daughter to sleep on summer nights when she was small and sweet and still loved me. The kitchen table where we'd celebrated every birthday, every holiday, every small victory, all of it, burning. I sat there on the shoulder of the highway and I cried. Not the pretty kind of crying you see in movies. The ugly kind. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't even know it was there. The kind that makes your whole body shake. The kind that feels like dying. And then, when I had no tears left, when I was hollow and empty and numb, I started the truck and I drove to Horse. to my daughter's house. Kristen lives in one of those new developments on the edge of the city. Big houses with perfect lawns and double garages and driveways that never have a crack. Her husband Liam works in finance, investment banking or wealth management or something like that. He wears expensive suits and talks about investment portfolios and market fluctuations like they're the most important thing in the world. Like nothing else matters. They've been married for 8 years, and in all that time, I've visited maybe a dozen times. Kristen always said they were busy. Always had some reason why it wasn't a good time. They were traveling. They were renovating. They had work events. They had couples therapy. Always something. But I figured, in an emergency, none of that would matter. I figured blood was still blood. I figured your mother losing everything would be enough. I was wrong. I pulled into their driveway just after 9 o'clock at night. The house was lit up like a Christmas display. Every window glowing. I could see them through the front window, sitting in their living room, watching television. Some crime show, from the look of it. I could see Kristen laughing at something on the screen. See Liam with his feet up on the ottoman, a glass of wine in his hand. They looked comfortable. They looked safe. They looked like people who'd never lost anything. I walked up to the door and knocked. It took 3 tries before anyone answered. When the door finally opened, it was Liam. He was wearing those casual clothes rich people wear at home. The kind that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Cashmere sweater, designer jeans, slippers that looked like they'd never touched anything dirtier than his own carpet. He looked at me, and I saw it immediately, the way his face changed. Not concern, not sympathy, not even surprise, just annoyance. Like I was a door-to-door salesperson interrupting his evening. "Hello, Liam," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm sorry to bother you, but the farm, there was a fire, everything's gone. I need somewhere to stay, just for tonight. Just until I can figure things out." He didn't move. He just stood there in the doorway, blocking my view of the inside, like I might try to push past him. Behind him, I heard Kristen's voice, annoyed at the interruption. "Who is it?" "It's your mother," he called back, and I heard the emphasis he put on the word mother, like it was an accusation. And then, to me, he said, "This isn't really a good time, Catherine. We have a big day tomorrow." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Something that felt like fear but tasted like understanding. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know it's late, but I have nowhere else to go. The farm is gone. Everything is gone. I just need a place to sleep." Kristen appeared behind him. My daughter. The girl I'd raised alone after her father died. The girl I'd worked 3 jobs for, so she could have dance lessons and new clothes and a car when she turned 16, and everything her friends had. The girl I'd sat up with through every nightmare, every heartbreak, every crisis. She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Something like guilt, something like shame, but it was gone before I could be sure. "Mom," she said, and her voice was thin, uncertain. This is such bad timing. We have Liam's boss coming for dinner tomorrow night, and the house is a mess, and we're still setting up the guest room, and I don't think we can. Not right now." I didn't understand. Or maybe I did, but I didn't want to. I stared at her. "Kristen," I said slowly, like I was talking to someone who didn't speak English, like I needed her to really hear the words. "My home burned down. Everything I own is gone. I have nowhere to sleep tonight. I'm asking you, my daughter, for help." Liam stepped forward, and when he spoke, his voice had that edge that men like him get when they're about to say something cruel and call it practical. "Listen, Catherine," he said. "No offense, but we just had the carpets cleaned. Professional cleaning cost us $2,000. We can't have, look at you. You've been in a fire. You probably have ash all over you. You smell like smoke. And frankly, we can't have a homeless person staying here. It wouldn't look good. Not with Liam's boss coming. Not in this neighborhood. A homeless person." He called me a homeless person. To my face. On my daughter's porch. I looked down at my clothes. He was right. I was covered in soot. My jeans were gray with ash. My jacket had burn marks on the sleeve. My hands were black. I probably did smell like smoke, like everything I'd lost. But I was also standing in front of my daughter, asking for help. I was also a 75-year-old woman who'd just watched her entire life burn down. Kristen didn't say anything. She just stood there, behind her husband, looking at the floor. Not at me, not at him. Just at the floor, like it might open up and swallow her. "I see," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else. "I'm sorry to have bothered you." I turned and walked back to my truck. My legs felt like they weren't mine. Like I was watching someone else walk away from their daughter's house. Someone else being told they weren't welcome. Someone else being called homeless by their own son-in-law, while their daughter stood silent. Behind me, I heard the door close. Not a slam. That would have taken energy, emotion. Just a quiet, final click. Like I'd never been there at all. I sat in the truck in their driveway for 10 minutes, maybe longer, trying to figure out what to do, where to go, how to be a person who'd just been rejected by their own child. It was getting cold. The temperature drops fast up here, even in summer. Once the sun goes down, the chill comes in from the mountains like it's been waiting all day. I had half a tank of gas and $43 in my purse. $43 and a 26-year-old truck and a quilt and a photo and a watch. That was everything. That was my whole life now. I couldn't afford a hotel. Even a cheap one would cost more than I had. I couldn't go back to the farm because there was no farm to go back to. Just ash and burned wood and melted metal. I thought about calling the Red Cross, but I felt ashamed. Like admitting I needed help from strangers would be admitting that my own daughter's rejection was real, was final. So I drove to a parking lot by the river, the one where tourists stop to take photos during the day. At night it was empty. Just me and the dark water and the mountains I couldn't see but knew were there. I parked facing the river and I tried to sleep in the truck. I wrapped myself in the quilt I'd saved, the one my grandmother had made during the war when fabric was rationed and every scrap mattered. I closed my eyes and tried to pretend I was somewhere else. Anywhere else. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Liam's face, heard his words. A homeless person. A homeless person dirtying his Persian rug. And worse, so much worse, I saw Kristen, standing behind him, saying nothing, doing nothing. Letting him turn her mother away, like I was a stranger. Like I was nothing. I thought about all the times I'd defended her when she was young, when teachers called to complain about her behavior, about her talking back, about her cheating on a test. When neighbors said she was spoiled, said I gave her too much, said she needed discipline. I'd always said the same thing. She's a good girl, she's just going through something. She just needs time. She'll grow up. She'll understand someday what I sacrificed for her. Well, she'd grown up, and this was who she'd become. This was what my sacrifices had bought me. A closed door, a clicked lock, a daughter who valued her carpet more than her mother. Sitting there in that cold truck, wrapped in my dead grandmother's quilt, I started thinking about the past, about everything I'd lost, not just the house and the farm, but the years, the life, and about everyone I'd loved. My husband, Robert, who died when Kristen was only 12, lung cancer. It took him in 6 months, which the doctors said was actually fast, like that was supposed to be comforting. One day he was fine, coughing a little but fine. The next he was in the hospital getting scans, and then he was gone. Just gone. Like he'd never been there at all. I'd raised Kristen alone after that. Worked at the diner during the day, 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Cleaned offices at night, 6 until midnight. Took in sewing on weekends, alterations and repairs. Anything to keep the farm. To pay the mortgage Robert had taken out the year before he died. To give Kristen stability. To give her a home. To give her everything she needed so she wouldn't feel like she'd lost both parents. I did that for 6 years. 6 years of working myself to exhaustion. 6 years of sleeping 4 hours a night. 6 years of choosing between fixing the truck or buying Kristen the dress she wanted for homecoming. I always chose Kristen. Always. And I thought about Tyler Bennett, the boy from down the road who became the son I never had. He first showed up at my door when he was 11 years old. Skinny kid, all bones and messy blonde hair, wearing a t-shirt with holes in it and jeans that were too short. He was barefoot even though it was early spring and there was still snow on the ground. He asked if I had any work he could do for food. Not money, food. That's what he said. I can work for food if you have any. I should have known right then that something was wrong. What kind of 11-year-old asks for food like that? I gave him lunch that day. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. Simple food, the kind you make for kids. He ate like he hadn't seen food in days. Maybe he hadn't. He ate so fast I thought he might choke, and when he was done he looked at me like he was afraid I'd take the plate away, like he'd done something wrong by eating. I gave him seconds, then thirds. He ate until there was nothing left. I asked him about his family and he got quiet. Got that look kids get when they're trying to figure out how much to say, how much truth is safe. He said his mom had left 2 years ago, just drove away one day and never came back. Said his dad was, and here he paused, not around much, which I knew was code for drunk, or mean, or both. Everyone in our area knew about Roy Bennett. Drunk most of the time, mean the rest of it. There were stories about fights at the bar, about his wife leaving in the middle of the night with nothing but the clothes on her back, about the boy, Tyler, showing up to school with bruises he said came from falling off his bike, even in winter when there was no bike to ride. The boy was raising himself, and he was 11 years old. Come back tomorrow, I told Tyler as he was leaving. I'll have more work for you. He came back, and he kept coming back. Every day after school, he'd show up at my door, always with that uncertain look, like he was waiting for me to tell him to leave, to stop coming. But I never did. After a few weeks, it became routine. He'd show up around 3:30, help me with the farm, whatever needed doing, fixing fences, feeding animals, weeding the garden, stacking firewood. He was a hard worker, never complained, never asked for breaks. And when the work was done, he'd do his homework at my kitchen table while I made dinner, and I'd feed him. Kristen was 14 by then, and she didn't like it much. Didn't like sharing my attention. Didn't like that this boy was at our table every night. Didn't like that I was using our food, our space, our time, for someone who wasn't family. She'd make comments. Why is he always here? Why do we have to feed him? He has his own house. She was at that age where everything was about her, where she couldn't see past her own needs and wants. But I told her, some people need help, and we help them. That's what good people do. That's what family does. Tyler became part of our lives, part of our family, whether Kristen liked it or not. When things got bad at his house, really bad, when his father was on a bender and Tyler showed up with a black eye or a busted lip, I let him sleep in the barn, fixed up a little space for him with a cot and a heater and some blankets, made it warm and safe. He'd leave before dawn so his father wouldn't notice he was gone, wouldn't come looking for him. I taught him everything I knew. How to fix a fence so it would last. How to care for animals. How to know when a horse was sick or a chicken needed help. How to manage money. How to save every penny. How to make things last. How to dream bigger than the life he'd been given. How to believe he deserved more than what he had. He was smart. Smarter than he gave himself credit for. He'd sit at my kitchen table, struggling with algebra or history, convinced he was stupid because that's what his father told him. You're worthless. You're nothing. You'll never amount to anything. I heard Roy say it once, screaming it across his yard, and I wanted to march over there and tell him what I thought of a man who'd break down his own child like that, but Tyler asked me not to, said it would only make things worse. So instead, I built him back up. Every day. Every homework session. Every time he said he couldn't do something, I showed him he could. I made him study, pushed him to do his homework, helped him apply for scholarships when the time came, and he did it. He got good grades. He got into university. When he got accepted to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, full scholarship, I cried, happy tears. real joy. He was getting out. He was going to make something of himself. He was going to be okay. The day he left, he stood on my porch with his one backpack and his cardboard box of belongings, and he hugged me. Really hugged me. The kind of hug that says everything words can't. "Thank you," he said into my shoulder. "For everything. You saved my life. You know that, right? You literally saved my life." I told him to call when he could, when he was settled. He said he would. And for the first year, he did. Every few weeks, I'd get a call. He'd tell me about his classes, about engineering and physics and all these things I didn't understand but loved hearing about anyway. He'd tell me about the city, about the ocean, about seeing things he'd only read about in books, about roommates and professors, and this whole new world he was part of now. And I'd tell him about the farm, about Kristen, about the small things that made up my life. But then the calls got less frequent. Every few months instead of every few weeks. Then, once or twice a year, usually at Christmas or on my birthday. Then nothing. Nothing for 15 years. I didn't blame him. People move on. Build new lives. Find new families. I figured he'd found his place in the world and didn't need an old woman from his past, reminding him of where he'd come from. Didn't need the weight of his childhood dragging him down. I was happy for him. Really happy. Even if it hurt a little that he'd forgotten about me. But sitting there in that truck, freezing and alone and unwanted, I found myself thinking about him, wondering where he was, what he was doing, if he ever thought about me. If he remembered the woman who'd fed him grilled cheese and helped him with algebra and told him he was worth something when no one else would. And then, I don't know why, maybe because I had no one else to call, maybe because I was desperate, maybe because some part of me needed to know if anyone in the world still cared whether I lived or died. I pulled out my phone. It was an old phone, the kind that flips open, because I'd never seen the point in spending money on something fancy. I scrolled through my contacts, past Kristen's name, past the few neighbors I still talked to, past the vet and the feed store, and the handful of other numbers I'd collected over the years. And there it was. Tyler Bennett. I'd never deleted it, even though I hadn't used it in 15 years. Even though I'd convinced myself he'd probably changed numbers a dozen times by now. Even though calling him felt pathetic. My hands were shaking as I dialed. From cold, I told myself. Just from cold. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I almost hung up. What was I doing? He probably wouldn't even remember me. Or worse, he'd remember me and not want to talk. Why would he? I was just someone from his past. Someone he'd left behind when he left Yukon. Someone who represented everything he'd escaped from. But then he answered. "Catherine, is that you?" My throat closed up. I couldn't speak for a second, couldn't make my mouth form words. He'd recognized my number. After all these years, after all this time, he'd kept my number in his phone and he'd recognized it. "Tyler," I managed. "Yes, it's me." His voice changed immediately. Went from surprised to concerned in half a second. "Are you okay? What's wrong? What happened?" And just like that, I broke. Completely broke. I told him everything. About the fire. About watching the flames consume 43 years of my life. About losing the farm, the house, the orchard, everything. About showing up at Kristen's house, suit covered and desperate, asking for help. About Liam calling me homeless. About Kristen standing silent while her husband turned me away. About sleeping in my truck in a parking lot because I had nowhere else to go. No one else to call. No idea what to do next. The words came out in a rush, messy and desperate and pathetic, and I hated how I sounded. Hated that I was dumping all of this on someone who probably had his own life, his own problems, his own family now. "I'm sorry," I said when I finally ran out of words. "I shouldn't have called. I don't even know why I did. You probably have your own life now, and here I am bothering you with all this. I had no one else. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." There was a pause, just a few seconds, but it felt like forever. And then Tyler said something I'll never forget. Something that broke me and healed me at the same time. "Where are you now, Mom? Mom." He called me Mom. I'd never asked him to call me that, never suggested it. He'd just started doing it on his own when he was 16, tentative at first, like he was testing to see if I'd correct him. And I'd never corrected him because secretly, I'd loved it. I'd loved being mom to someone again, to someone who chose me, who wanted me to be that for him. I'm in a parking lot, I said, my voice breaking. By the river in Whitehorse, I'm in my truck. I don't know what to do. Don't move, he said, and his voice had changed. It was firm now, commanding. Don't move, and don't you ever apologize to me again. Do you understand? Never again. You gave me everything. Everything. When I had nothing, when I was nothing, you gave me food and shelter and love and a future. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the reason I'm anything. Now it's my turn. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Tyler, I started, but he cut me off. I need you to do exactly what I tell you, he said. Are you listening? There's a hotel downtown called the High Country Inn. Go there right now, right this second. Check in and tell them to put it on Tyler Bennett's account. They'll know who I am. They'll take care of you. Order room service. Whatever you want. Take a hot shower. Get warm. Get clean. Get some sleep. I'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. First thing. Do you understand? I can't ask you to do that, I said. That's too much. I just needed to hear a friendly voice. I didn't mean for you to. I mean, a hotel must be expensive and I can't pay you back. You're not asking, he said. I'm telling you. And Catherine, Mom, there's something you should know. Something I should have told you years ago, but I wanted to wait until I could really make you proud. Since I left UConn, since I graduated, I've built a company. Up in Anchorage, in Alaska. Clean energy, mostly wind and solar for remote communities. Places like where we grew up. Places that need power but don't have infrastructure. It started small, but it's grown. It's done well, very well. I'm successful now, Mom. More successful than I ever dreamed. And I can take care of you now. The way you took care of me. The way you deserved to be taken care of all along. I didn't understand what he meant by very well, not yet. But I drove to the hotel because he told me to, because it felt good to have someone tell me what to do, to have someone take care of the decisions when I couldn't think straight. The woman at the front desk smiled when I gave her Tyler's name. Of course, Ms. Williams, she said, like she'd been expecting me, like this was normal. Mr. Bennett called ahead. We have the executive suite ready for you, and please, if you need anything at all, anything, just call down. Mr. Bennett has asked us to take care of you. Executive suite. I'd never stayed in anything fancier than a roadside motel on the rare occasions I'd traveled. The room was bigger than my entire farmhouse had been. King-size bed with more pillows than any person could possibly need. Jacuzzi tub in the bathroom. Robes that felt like clouds. A view of the mountains through floor-to-ceiling windows. A sitting area with a couch and a coffee table. It was like something from a magazine. I ordered soup and a sandwich from room service, still feeling guilty about the cost. But when it arrived, the waiter set it up like I was royalty. Cloth napkins, real silverware. He wouldn't let me tip him. Mr. Bennett has taken care of everything, he said, which seemed to be everyone's line tonight. I ate slowly, tasting food for the first time all day. I showered, standing under water so hot it turned my skin red, washing away the ash and the smoke and some of the horror. I put on the complimentary bathrobe that was softer than anything I'd ever owned. And then I lay down on that enormous bed, in that ridiculous suite, and I cried again. But this time, it wasn't from grief. It was from relief. From gratitude. From the overwhelming realization that the boy I'd saved, the skinny 11-year-old who'd shown up at my door asking for food, had been out there all these years, becoming the kind of man who would drop everything to help me, who would remember me, who would call me Mom. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, I was up early, drinking coffee by the window and watching the sun come up over the mountains, when I heard it, a sound I'd only heard in movies. The deep hump of helicopter blades. I looked out and saw it descending into the hotel parking lot. A sleek black helicopter with gold trim, like something a movie star would use. My phone rang. "It's me," Tyler said. "Come outside." I took the elevator down, my heart pounding, still wearing the hotel robe because I didn't have any other clothes. When the doors opened to the lobby, other guests were gathered at the windows, pointing and filming on their phones. The staff were trying to act professional, but even they were staring. I walked outside into the cool morning air, and the helicopter was there, blades still spinning, wind whipping around it. And then the door opened and he stepped out. Tyler Bennett. Except he wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. Tall, probably 6'2", broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. His hair was shorter now, styled. He looked successful. He looked powerful. But when he saw me, his whole face broke into the same smile I remembered. The one that used to light up my kitchen when I'd tell him dinner was ready. The one that said he was safe, he was home, he was loved. He walked over, ignoring everyone else, ignoring the phones filming, ignoring the spectacle, and he pulled me into a hug, a real hug, the kind where you feel like someone's trying to hold all your broken pieces together. "I'm home now, Mom," he said into my hair. "And everything's going to be okay, I promise. Everything's going to be okay." We got into the helicopter. I'd never been in one before, never even thought about being in one. It was smaller inside than I'd expected, all leather seats and gleaming controls. Tyler sat across from me, still holding my hand like he was afraid I might disappear. "I need to show you something first," he said as we lifted off. "And then we need to pay a visit to your daughter." We flew south, over the forests and lakes, over the same landscape I'd driven through yesterday, but from a different angle, a different height. Everything looked smaller from up here, cleaner. The burned scars from the fire stood out like wounds on the earth, black and gray against the green. Tyler explained as we flew. He'd graduated with an engineering degree, top of his class. He'd moved to Anchorage because he'd recognized that remote communities in Alaska and northern Canada needed sustainable power. Places like where we'd grown up, places too far from the grid to get traditional electricity. He'd figured out how to make solar and wind power affordable for small communities, how to install systems that could withstand the cold and the weather. His company had grown fast. Contracts with tribal governments, partnerships with Canadian First Nations, expansion into 3 countries. He pulled out his phone and showed me an article, Forbes Canada, his face on the cover, professional and confident. The headline read, "Tyler Bennett, Clean Energy Billionaire, Gives Back to the North." Billionaire? I stared at the word, stared at his face on the cover of a magazine. This was the same boy who used to do homework at my kitchen table. The same boy who'd slept in my barn. The same boy who'd asked for food like he didn't deserve to eat. "Tyler," I started, but I didn't know what to say. He shook his head, reading my mind. "None of it would exist without you," he said. "You taught me that hard work matters. That kindness matters. That people matter more than things. That dignity isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Everything I've built, every success I've had, it started in your kitchen, doing homework while you made dinner, learning what it meant to be treated like I mattered." We flew over a massive lake, pristine and blue, surrounded by mountains still capped with snow. Tyler pointed down. "That's Cluin Lake," he said. "See that property on the south shore? The one with the log house?" I looked. There was a beautiful home right on the water, all wood and glass, with a dock stretching into the lake. It looked like something from a magazine, like something people dream about but never actually have. "That's yours," Tyler said. "I bought it 6 months ago. I've been fixing it up, furnishing it. I was going to surprise you for Christmas, bring you up in the helicopter, show you that I'd made something of myself. But I think now is better. I think now you need it more." I couldn't speak, couldn't form words. I just stared down at this house, this impossible beautiful house, and tried to understand what he was saying. "You'll never ask anyone for shelter again," Tyler said, and his voice was fierce, protective. "You'll never be turned away. You'll never sleep in your truck. You'll never be called homeless. Never again. But we didn't go to the lake house yet. First, Tyler said, we fly to White Horses to Kristen's neighborhood. There's something I need to do. He told the pilot to land right in the middle of the street, in front of Kristen's house. I started to protest, said we couldn't do that, said it wasn't allowed. Tyler just smiled. Mom, he said, I own the helicopter. I can land wherever I want. You should have seen it. Should have seen the faces of everyone on that street when a helicopter descended into their quiet suburban neighborhood. Neighbors coming out of their houses, some in bathrobes and slippers, all of them with their phones out, filming kids running into yards to watch, dogs barking. And Kristen and Liam, standing on their porch, watching with their mouths open as this sleek black helicopter landed in the middle of their street like something from an action movie. Tyler helped me out of the helicopter. He was calm, controlled, but I could see the anger in his eyes, the hurt, not for himself, for me. He'd always been protective of me, even as a boy, even when he was the one who needed protecting. We walked up to the house. Liam started forward, all puffed up and indignant. You can't land that thing here, he said, raising his voice to be heard over the helicopter blades winding down. This is a residential area. I'm calling the police. Tyler ignored him completely, like he wasn't even there. He looked at Kristen, who was standing behind her husband, pale and shocked. Hi, Kristen, he said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Remember me? She squinted, trying to place him. The poor kid her mother had taken in 30 years ago didn't look anything like the man standing in front of her now. Tyler, she said uncertainly. That's right, he said. Tyler Bennett, the homeless kid your mom took in. The one who slept in the barn because his own home wasn't safe. The one you used to complain about because he took up too much of Catherine's time. The one you said was pathetic. Remember that, Kristen? You called me pathetic. You said your mom was wasting her time on someone who'd never amount to anything. Kristen's face went red. I never, she started, but Tyler held up his hand. Last night, he said, and now his voice carried across the yard, across the street, where everyone was watching, filming, recording this moment for posterity. Last night, you turned away the woman who raised me. The woman who gave me a home when I had none. The woman who fed me when I was starving. The woman who believed in me when no one else did. Your mother showed up at your door, having lost everything in a fire, and you let your husband call her homeless and turn her away because you didn't want ash on your carpet. By now, half the neighborhood was out on their lawns, watching. I recognized some of them from previous visits. Mrs. Kowalski, from 3 doors down. The Chuns from across the street. All of them watching. All of them filming. Liam tried to interrupt. Now wait just a minute, he said. That's not. You don't understand the situation. We had plans. We had obligations. Tyler turned to him, and I'd never seen Tyler look at someone with such contempt. You told her she'd dirty your Persian rug, he said. Is that right? Liam's mouth opened and closed. His face was turning red. That's not. I didn't mean. You're taking it out of context. No, Tyler said. I'm taking it exactly in context. You looked at a 75-year-old woman who'd just lost her home, who'd raised her daughter alone, who'd worked herself to exhaustion to give that daughter a good life, and you saw an inconvenience, a problem, something that might embarrass you in front of your boss, something that might mess up your carpet. He turned back to Kristen. If you were in my place, would you forgive your daughter? Or would you let her live with the consequences? Tell me in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. Your mother worked 3 jobs to raise you alone after your father died, Tyler said to her. 3 jobs. She slept 4 hours a night, 4 years. She sacrificed everything, every comfort, every luxury, every moment of rest, so you could have a good life, so you could have dance lessons and new clothes and a car and college. And when she needed you, just once, when she came to you with nothing, you failed her. You chose him over her. You chose your carpet over your mother. Kristen was crying now, mascara running down her face. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. Mom, I'm so sorry. I wanted to help, but Liam said, He said it wouldn't look good, and I'm sorry. Tyler shook his head. Don't blame him, he said. You're an adult. You had a choice. Every second he was speaking, you had a choice to step forward, to defend her, to tell him he was wrong. But you didn't. You stood there, silent. And that silence was a choice too. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. The keys, he said, to the house at Cluin Lake. It's yours, fully furnished, everything you need, fully paid for. You own it outright, no mortgage, no rent. It's yours. And you'll never, ever have to ask anyone for shelter again. Kristen stared at the envelope, at Tyler, at the helicopter. Tyler, she said, her voice small. If you could do this for Mom, if you have this kind of money, why didn't you help before? Why didn't you call? Why didn't you help her keep the farm? Tyler looked at her with something like pity. Because she never asked, he said. In all these years, she never once called me asking for help, because that's who she is. She gives. She doesn't take. She helps others and suffers in silence rather than burden anyone. She only called me last night because she had literally nowhere else to go. Because her own daughter turned her away, because she was sitting in her truck in a parking lot in the cold and she was desperate. And even then, even desperate, she apologized for calling, for bothering me. That's the kind of person your mother is, and you treated her like garbage. The neighbors were still filming, still watching. Mrs. Kowalski was shaking her head in disgust, not even trying to hide it. By that evening, the video would be all over local social media. Someone would post it with the caption, "Billionaire confronts woman who rejected his mom," and it would go viral. By the next morning, it would be on the news. Kristen and Liam would become the most hated couple in Whitehorse. But I didn't know that yet. In that moment, I just felt tired. So tired. Let's go, I said to Tyler. Please, I just want to leave. We got back in the helicopter. As we lifted off, I looked down one last time and saw Kristen standing in her yard, crying, while Liam yelled at the neighbors to stop filming, to mind their own business. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, no victory, just a kind of tired sadness, like looking at something broken that can't be fixed. The lake house was more beautiful up close than it had been from the air. All windows and warm wood, with a massive stone fireplace and a kitchen that overlooked the water. Tyler had hired a housekeeper who'd already stocked the fridge and laid fires in both fireplaces. There were fresh flowers on the dining table. My grandmother's quilt, the one I'd saved from the fire, was already there, folded carefully on the bed in the master bedroom. Next to it was Robert's watch and our wedding photo, the only things I'd saved. When did you bring those? I asked, touching the quilt. This morning, Tyler said. While you were sleeping, I had someone pick them up from the hotel. I thought you'd want them here, in your new home. I walked through the house, touching everything. The smooth granite counters, the soft rugs, the rocking chair by the window that looked out over the lake, the shelves already filled with books, the closet full of new clothes in my size, the bathroom with a tub big enough for 2 people. Every detail perfect, every detail thought of. How much did all this cost? I asked. Tyler put his hands on my shoulders. It doesn't matter, he said. I can afford it. I can afford anything you need or want for the rest of your life. And you deserve it. You deserve every good thing. Tyler, I said, this is too much. You've already done so much. I can't accept this. He took my hands in his. When I was 11 years old, he said, I showed up at your door, starving and scared, and convinced I was worthless, and you fed me. You didn't ask why I was there. You didn't ask what was wrong with my family. You didn't judge. You just helped. And you kept helping for 7 years. You gave me food when I was hungry. You gave me shelter when home wasn't safe. You taught me how to be a person worth being. You showed me that I mattered, that I deserved good things. You loved me when no one else did, when I didn't even love myself. You're the reason I'm alive, Mom. The reason I didn't give up. The reason I believed I could be more than what I was born into. So no, this isn't too much. This isn't even close to enough. I'll never be able to repay what you gave me. But I can try. For the rest of my life, I can try. I moved into the lake house that day. Tyler stayed for a week, making sure I was settled, making sure I had everything I needed. He set up accounts for me so I'd never have to worry about money. He hired people to help with the house, with maintenance, with whatever I needed. He made sure I knew how to reach him anytime, day or night. And then he went back to Anchorage, to his company, to his life. But he called every few days, and he visited once a month, sometimes more, flying up in his helicopter like it was the most normal thing in the world. I lived in that house for 3 months before Kristen tried to reach out. She sent a letter first. A long one, 5 pages of small handwriting, full of apologies and explanations. She said Liam had been under stress at work, that he'd been worried about losing his job, that they'd been fighting about money, that she'd been scared to stand up to him, scared of making things worse, that she'd regretted it the moment the door closed, that she loved me, that she was sorry, so sorry. I read the letter sitting by the lake, watching the water, and then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. A week later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again, and again. I listened to the messages. They were all the same. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. Please forgive me. I made a mistake. After the 10th call, I called her back. We talked for an hour. She cried. I listened, and when she was done, when she'd said everything she needed to say, I told her the truth. I forgive you, Kristen, I said. I do. I'm your mother, and I'll always love you, and I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. It doesn't erase what happened. You made a choice that night. You chose your husband's opinion over your mother's welfare. You chose a carpet over a person. And that choice revealed something about who you are, about what matters to you, about what you value. She asked if we could start over, if she could visit, if we could rebuild our relationship. I told her the truth. Maybe someday, I said, but not now. Right now, I need to be somewhere where I'm valued, where I'm wanted, where people choose me, not just tolerate me. And that's not with you. Not yet. Maybe never. I don't know. She cried harder. I didn't. I'd cried all the tears I had. Now I was just empty. And maybe that was okay. Maybe empty was better than full of grief. She drove up a few days later, showed up at the house uninvited, with flowers and more tears. I let her in because that's what you do. We sat by the lake and she cried and apologized and told me how much she loved me. And I listened. Really listened. And when she was done, I said, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate your apology, but I need time and space. And I need you to respect that. How much time? She asked. I don't know, I said. Maybe a lot, maybe forever. I haven't decided yet. She left crying and I felt sad for her, but I didn't regret what I'd said. I didn't regret choosing myself for once. Over the next year, I heard things about Kristen and Liam through mutual acquaintances. Through the few people from my old life who still kept in touch. Their marriage was struggling. Liam had lost his job, something about inappropriate conduct, though no one had details. They'd had to sell their house, move into something smaller, further from the city, less prestigious. Kristen had tried to reach out a few times, tentative emails or texts, but I'd kept my distance. Tyler created a foundation in my name, the Catherine Williams Foundation, dedicated to helping women who'd lost their homes to fire or other disasters. He put $5 million into it to start. Asked me to help run it, if I wanted to. Said I'd be good at it because I knew what it felt like to lose everything. I've been doing that for the past year, helping other women the way Tyler helped me. Getting them housing, getting them clothes and food and medical care, getting them connected with resources, sitting with them while they cry, telling them it gets better, showing them that it does. It's good work, important work. It makes me feel like maybe there was a point to everything that happened. Like maybe the fire had to burn everything down so something new could grow. Some people think I'm too hard on Kristen, that I should let her back into my life. That family is family, no matter what. that I should forgive and forget and move on. But I disagree. Family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about being there when it matters. It's about choosing someone, day after day, even when it's hard. Even when it's inconvenient. Tyler showed up. He flew across the country in a helicopter because I needed him. He gave me a home because I didn't have one. He treats me like I matter because I do. Kristen didn't show up. She turned me away. She stood silent while her husband called me homeless. She chose comfort over compassion, and choices have consequences. Maybe someday I'll be ready to let her back in. Maybe someday the hurt will fade enough that I can see her without remembering that night. Without remembering how it felt to stand on her porch, desperate, and hear her door click shut. But not yet. Not now. I spend my days in this beautiful house by the lake. In winter, the ice forms thick enough to walk on, and the mountains turn white, and it's so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat. In summer, the water sparkles like diamonds and the wildflowers bloom, and sometimes I sit on the porch and cry. But they're good tears. Grateful tears. Tears that say thank you to the universe for second chances. Tyler visits once a month, sometimes more. He brings his girlfriend, Melissa, who's kind and funny and smart and treats me like I'm her own mother. They're talking about getting married next year. They want to have the wedding here, by the lake. They want me to be part of it. To walk Tyler down the aisle, since he doesn't have parents who deserve that honor. I told them I couldn't think of anything more perfect. People ask me if I'm angry about what happened, about losing the farm, about Kristen, about everything. And I tell them no. Some fires come to destroy. But some fires come to purify. Mine burned away everything that didn't matter and showed me what did. It showed me who my real family was. It showed me that the family you choose can love you more than the family you're born into. It showed me that kindness is never wasted. That the seeds you plant in another person's life can grow into forests. That what you give comes back. Maybe not when you expect it. Maybe not how you expect it. But it comes back. I saved Tyler when he was a boy. Gave him food and shelter and love when he had none. And he saved me when I needed it most. Not just financially, though that mattered. But emotionally, he saved me from believing that I didn't matter. That I wasn't worth helping. That I deserved to be turned away. He reminded me that I was worth saving. That I'd always been worth saving. Some nights I still dream about the fire. I see the flames consuming my house, my barn, my life. I see everything I built turning to ash, and I wake up afraid, heart pounding, reaching for something solid. But then I open my eyes and I see the lake out my window, the mountains beyond, the sky so big and blue, it looks like it goes on forever. And I remember, I'm not homeless, I'm not unwanted, I'm not standing on my daughter's porch being turned away. I'm home, really home, maybe for the first time in my life. The boy I saved me back, and that's the only family that matters. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. And remember, sometimes the family you choose loves you more than the one you were born into.